Um, we have a lot of people on, and so I need to double check on something. Trying to get my attendance. I do not see Sue Caswell. Are you on? Do not see Sue on yet. All right. I know Jason Gallipo will be in and out. Eric Hillmuth, are you on? I think I saw both an accept and decline from him, so I'm unsure if he's joining us. Okay. And then Captain Barnes from Safety, he's accepted but hasn't joined. So, all right, we'll have to see if they do. 2, 3. We barely, but we have a quorum, so we can go ahead and start the meeting. All right, welcome all. For all of you that are not on the council, welcome. If this is you've been here before, you're probably familiar with what we're about. If this is your first time, this is the meeting 10 of the Cybersecurity Advisory Council. The Cybersecurity Advisory Council was a result of legislation passed in the 2023 Vermont State Legislative Session that established a council to work on identify opportunities and make improvements to the cyber preparedness, readiness of critical infrastructure operators and essential supply chain organizations within the boundaries of the state of Vermont. And so this council meets every other month at the third Wednesday between 1:30 and 3 as an opportunity to, I know I sent this out to the council, but for those that are visitors, you may not have this. There will not be a September meeting. So the next meeting for the council will be in November, which, given the weather, sounds like an awfully long ways away. Now it's over to the presentation. And we have a rather brief agenda today. First is to review any edits, updates, comments related to the recap and the results of the meeting 9. Then we're going to talk about sector-specific plans. We have had opportunity to meet individually with some of the folks to kind of figure out how best to move forward. We have that aggregated and for the council to consider as a means to start to build upon the work that as a collective that's been done, but now feels like anything going any farther on a one size fits most approach would not necessarily be beneficial to folks, right? We have a lot of varying nuances of cybersecurity maturity in organizations and now and in sectors. And so starting to figure out how to develop program services, do things that will benefit all the different ones and be meaningful and not just checking the box. So that's what the majority of today's discussion is about. For those of you that are not council members, we ask that you wait till the third item, the open discussion, public comment. If you have feedback for the council, items that you want to bring that may be of interest to the council membership, or even just general comments about cybersecurity and critical infrastructure in the state of Vermont, things that you've experienced or items that you think would be important for others to hear. And then we'll adjourn. We have 90 minutes today for this. I'm unsure if we will need that full time, but Oh, now we can, we definitely have our proxy. We have 7 now with JK, who's here on behalf of Secretary Riley Hughes. So your proxy today. I want to keep coming back. See, sure I'm not missing anyone. All right. There's no questions or comments about that. We'll dive right in. So for council members, was there anything that you wanted to bring to my attention with regards to the recap or any changes to the meeting documentation from our May meeting? I'll give folks a minute to either post it in the chat or raise their hand, and not, then we'll call it good and move on. This format of minutes seems like a long time. We're gonna stop it there. If there's anything, feel free to either put it in the chat or raise your hand as we're going through the rest of the agenda to make corrections. So if not, we'll keep that as the final published recap from the May meeting. So one of the things that occurred between the May meeting and this meeting was I had the opportunity to sit down with everyone but Lieutenant Colonel Gallipo of the National Guard to talk about how to move forward. That we were, for those that may recall, the May meeting, we were talking about in statute, there's a number of additional items that the council has not addressed, things around reviewing standards, protocols, procedures, other items in statute that the council is charged with doing. And then also we were discussing whether or not the merits of having a single assessment tool. And that was I think me more than anything, the engineer and me advocating for a black and white thing, one size fits all. And it seems to be not the case, right? And so I met with each one to be like, kind of get from each of you. And there seemed to be consensus as I met with each one that, yeah, we are at the point by which what Mark and hospitals need to worry about is going to be different than what Joe Duncan and water system operators may be concerned with from a cyber risk. There may be the same ones, right? Maybe the same risks exist, but each sector may have a different set of priorities. Hospitals likely will prioritize data security, data categorization, those things significantly higher than maybe some other sectors where other sectors may prioritize knowing where all their operational technology is, knowing that it's secure, right? So that things operate efficiently. And so what came out of all those discussions, I kind of took those thoughts, all the different conversation items, and aggregated them into what you see here today. And what, in order, I think, for us to move on would be for council to endorse this approach, right? So I think there's 3 slides that speak to kind of the notes from that. We'll walk through those slides, and then as a council, we can discuss any kind of changes, edits, and at some point we'll probably want just to codify a motion and a vote to to accept this approach for the creation of sector-specific plans. So some fundamentals, right? Resiliency, response, and recovery kind of came out that they're, the three facets of cybersecurity. Fundamentally, right? You're trying to prevent it. If you can't prevent it, you need to respond to it. And then once you've responded to it, you need to somehow recover so you can continue to do business. What we talked about was almost all sectors have a very diverse set of organizations that provide critical infrastructure functionality in that sector. We have some that are fairly mature, and we have some that probably have not had the opportunity to invest heavily in cybersecurity, and there's everything in between. And so one of the thoughts that kind of seemed to come up was the idea of developing a roadmap so that I'm using the term roadmap, but in essence, it was the ability for organizations to assess where they're at and then know what their next 3 steps should be, right? So I think often maybe cybersecurity efforts may stall because people just are unsure of what to do next. And I've got in the back of my head, I'm going to credit the CISO for the state government, John Toney, state of Vermont, that the importance of being pragmatic as we look at these things, right? You could spend years chasing maybe one control when you could have accomplished dozens of others that would have just as much an impact. So, thinking about that kind of stuff, what does a progression look like for organizations in each sector? Again, just kind of reiterating, allow any organization where they are to kind of come in, be able to be like self-test and say, yep, we've got that. Oop, we don't have that, and that. So now we know the next 3 things that we should be focused on. One of the areas that was discussed individually with folks was the idea that to try and keep it where appropriate, apples to apples, is one set of controls as the basis. Realizing that's not going to work in all sectors. I think it was Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we spoke, you said that the Department of Energy has defined a set of, excuse me, I'm trying to somebody in. That the Department of Energy has already a set of controls, cybersecurity framework that exists. It's adopted. It's in use throughout the majority of the sector, and it's pretty mature and robust. Is that correct, Erica?
Yeah, that's correct.
So,
and it's tied. They tie it specifically into a lot of grant stuff, right? You have to, work along their timeline.
So what we were saying is that if one exists, right, that's already in use in a sector for whatever reason, that should probably be the basis. But if a sector doesn't have a standard or an accepted set, we're kind of kicking around using Center for Internet Security. That's the suggestion. I think that is something that can be determined by each of the sectors as they work through development of this. But CIS controls version 8.1, what resonated with me, and for those that are familiar with it, it has 3 distinct implementation groups, right? And so there's this first level, which is fundamentals. And then there's a middle tier, which is fundamentals plus, right? The next step. And then the third tier, which is the most mature. And from the results of the survey that we conducted last year at this time, we know that often most of our sectors, the organizations can be in one of those 3 categories typically, right? They're either at the basis, at the entry point, and they need work in the fundamentals, or they've got the fundamentals, but they need help getting to the next level, which would be like implementation group 2, or they're pretty mature and they're striving for things that come with like implementation group 3. So that felt like that was a pretty good match. Next piece that came out of the conversation, I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? Okay. The next piece that came out of the conversation is the roadmap for this effort, right? Should be based on, I call it localized in some instances, but like the knowledge that we have in that controls be prioritized based on a risk profile for the sector. What's the level of effort? What is the impact, right? And then here's my CISO reference, right? And tempered with experience and pragmatism. Making sure that we, as those that are experienced in these areas, right, as Vermonters, know what is the more likely risk. So when you look at CIS implementation group 1 out of the framework, version 8.1 of the framework, you'll see like, I can't remember what it is, 54 maybe things like it says to do, like know who all your, one is like have an inventory of your service providers, fundamentals. But what's, I think we can add to that is knowing the sector, knowing what you've seen for risk and where like level of effort is, help folks rank that, because within even the implementation groups, there's not a sequencing per se. And I think for a lot of organizations, they would benefit from somebody just laying out, hey, do that, you're going to get the most bang for your buck in this area if you do this one first, then this one second, this one third, that kind of thing. So that's another piece of it that was kind of discussed individually. And then, localizing it with Vermont specific information. So does the Vermont have in statute something that is a different requirement than what's in the standard, right? So if it is, having it reflect that, or pick on James Lehman, representing the Attorney General, right? Vermont has specific reporting requirements if you have a breach, right? So making sure that as this gets developed, those Vermont specific elements get incorporated in it, right? So people are not still having to go do that research themselves. And then lastly was there was a kind of came up throughout was how do we measure progress? And I think this is another one of those that I don't know if we can pick a one size fits all. I think each sector would be better served to work to identify how best to measure progress in their sector. Right? Is it the number of organizations that have completed a certain percentage of controls annually, right? Or is there a mandatory assessment, and scoring on that can lead to report it and measured as progress, right? So each of those sectors may have a good way that would reflect the importance in their sector of measuring progress. I've been pretty much talking for 21 minutes solid. I would like to stop there and ask council members for feedback, thoughts, concerns, and I can go back or forward in slides if anyone wants to talk to anything specifically. Go ahead, Joe.
I'll just say that I'm in favor of the sector-specific plans. Like you said, there's probably a lot of commonalities, and I'm sure that a lot of the ideas are similar across the sectors. But one of the things that's obvious to me is that there's a definite difference in maturity, at least in where places are in those sectors. And I think water is one of the ones that's probably some of the least mature that are out there. So what I would say might be focus areas of sectors might be different depending upon how far you've gotten in any of the different stages. But so I'm on board with it, and I think it's a good path to go. And I see it similar to the role that we're in right now, that my job is to bring forward what the water sector is seeing and needing. So I think having these sector specific plans only enhances that and the ability to bring it forward back to this council and then back to the legislature. So hopefully that also helps the process. So those are just some of my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts? Concerns? Are the council members comfortable with moving forward with this approach? I guess that's the ultimate question, because if so, then we could entertain a motion and a vote to kind of formalize this.
I'm comfortable with this, and I'm happy to make whatever motion needs to be made to move forward.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by James. That Joe, was that you seconding?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And the motion would be to formally make this part of the council's approach to, I don't want to say this. Somebody's got a good idea. Erica, you usually have good idea on language for this stuff.
Okay, I'm working on it.
Thank you. Trying to think how we would want to phrase this to capture so then that everybody can agree before we vote on it. Maybe that the development of sector-specific plans will be the next priority for the council. Just as straightforward as that. Is that what you had, Erica?
Oh, I had the word sector by sector approach.
Oh.
To develop standard I don't know, you put me on the spot.
Okay, no, I know. Sorry. Going off script. How about what I proposed in, which was the development of sector-specific plans will be the next priority for the council. They're concerned with that. In the chat. Oh, really? Okay. Oh wait, I can see it up on the big screen here. Yeah. Look at that. So for those that are not on the teams and don't see the chat, Erica for the council has put forward to formally encourage a sector by sector approach to develop industry specific recommendations and guidelines to increase cyber maturity. She has it ending in a question mark. I think I should end in a period because that sounds good. James, Joe, any concerns since you've made the motion, seconded it, that if we
No
adopt
concern with
that?
it. Yes.
I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. we'll adopt that based on the vote that we'll do here. So for the council members, either signify support for it by saying aye or raising your hand, please.
Aye.
I,
Yeah, you got to vote on Denise's behalf. Thank you. All right. Anyone opposed? James, your hand's still up. I'm assuming that's an aye, not an opposed hand.
Sorry,
Thank
that's
you.
correct.
I was reading your mind. All right. No opposed. Is there anyone looking to abstain? All right. That carries. Thank you all. One of the things that we had talked about, but is not necessarily, I don't believe is codified because each of you are representatives of your respective sectors on the council. So you have, right, the authority to engage with peers in your sector as you see fit. But there were some ideas about how to do that engagement that came out of the different discussions. I've included those here. This is not something that we have to vote on or anything, but it's more of a kind of like thoughts for folks to consider as to how to do this. When that is, don't do it yourself. Even though you're the representative of the sector, right? Pull together a peer group, try to get different representation. One of the things that we had all talked about was to have that peer group meet on the opposing months to the council so that it doesn't end up being too demanding for anyone to move forward. We talked about the remaining items in statute and sector-specific plans that would come as recommendations from each of you to the council for consideration. I will, since this is like my gig, I will offer myself to be available to help with coordination, documentation. The other thing is that I will work with folks around that can provide threat briefings and try to make sure that each meeting there is someone there from like Vermont Intelligence Center or our own CISO's office or maybe CISA or FBI to help, I think, put context around the why of the work, right? If you're in this industry, right? And Eric Helmuth, are you on? And joined earlier. Is not. So Eric has this interesting one. He was Vermont state statute modified critical infrastructure to include this thing called essential supply chain. They defined it as like everything from PPE to food systems to fuel systems and manufacturing and everything else in between. So he's supposed to be representing that group. I think for whoever he finds to work with, it would help them understand maybe a sense of urgency, right? If they hear a threat brief out about the kind of things that maybe manufacturing folks are seeing as threats routinely, that puts people understand the value of the work. So that's another piece that I'll offer for our federal friends on the call. Stay tuned because until this meeting, I wasn't sure if this was going to happen, and I will talk to you about whether or not it's even possible to include you in any kind of brief out like that. Any questions? Like I said, this is purely here for kind of folks to use as reference. Okay. Hearing none. For the council members, this slide deck, as all of them are on the SharePoint site for the council, if you want to reference it. And I think there's nothing new here from what I circulated for pre-meeting materials last week. Move on then. That was our big one for today. Now we're open discussion. Anybody that's on the call, we can open it up. Questions that folks may have, opportunities to share. All right, I'm going to put somebody on the spot. You have the list up of who's attending? Oh, no. Let me bounce over there. I'm going to put somebody that's a guest on the spot. I think I saw join. Yes, gentleman from the town of Brandon, Raymond Counter. I was curious, Ray, if you would be willing to speak briefly about your experience hosting a tabletop. I think you had an exercise in Brandon about a month or so ago that some federal partners helped coordinate and participate in. I was just curious if you could share your experience on that.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I met with Adam Gamlin of CISA, and he did an assessment for the fire district. And just to give you a little background, the Brandon Fire District serves the majority of the town of Brandon with drinking water and fire protection. So I got connected with Adam, and we conducted a tabletop exercise, invited people from the state, federal, local, and went through several different scenarios that could happen. And I have to say, it was really an eye-opener for me, being the water superintendent, in realizing that in emergency situations, we, or myself, I'm expected to wear many hats, which can't be efficient, or is not efficient at all. But there's a lot of areas that we can improve, just subtle changes, multi-factor authentication, that was a big one for us. And it's just, so we're looking at taking small steps. I'm actually having a special meeting with our Prudential Committee, and Adam is going to join us and present his assessment, so the board will get a better understanding. And it's coming out of an expert, someone more knowledgeable about cybersecurity than myself. Cybersecurity is not something I really expected to. That's not a hat I expected to wear when I became a water operator. But it's out of that tabletop exercise, for us being a fire district, we really rely on the town of Brandon to help us communicate. So that was a big glaring thing for us, that, that communication has to work better. And from my personal experiences in emergencies, if we can streamline those calls and not duplicate it, it would be awesome. And also, just wanted to throw out, I know Joe had mentioned doing sector specific. So Joe, I'm more than willing to work with you on spreading the word to these smaller systems.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, and thank you for the sharing that information. It was not something that we spoke about, so I appreciate that. I thought it was timely. So with the audience we have on, if there's others that are interested with engaging CISA for similar activities, I think I saw Adam Gamlin, the Vermont representative from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I was stumbled trying to say the full name. He's available in that capacity. I see the questions in the chat from Irvin about the information. Thank you, Peter Nelson, for sharing the website where you can find out who the membership is. One thing that you will see is that many of the sectors as defined at the federal level are not represented on the council yet. And that is something that we have. The HE Digital Services, I think, plans on addressing this session with technical corrections change to try and get more sectors represented on the council. I see a Charlie Bombard sharing that having a good assessment working with Adam recently. So thank you for that. Trying to. Does anybody else have anything they care to share? I'm going to keep you on. We'll wrap this up. All right. As mentioned in the beginning, we will have the September meeting is canceled. Next meeting will be November 19th, right before Thanksgiving. Hard to imagine. One thing that I'll be working on a slightly different agenda for November for council members. We'll have a period of time set aside for like sector by sector report outs on, I guess, progress towards that sector specific plan. Also, we can have time dedicated to discussion to make sure that everyone is on the same page so that the products being produced are somewhat consistent, even though they're going to be unique for a sector, but they still have some consistency to them. The other is I met with Lieutenant Colonel Jason Gallipo this morning about an effort that's 10 years in the making in the state of Wisconsin around cybersecurity response and support for municipalities and municipally owned critical infrastructure and nonprofits. It's a really interesting and successful program. We're provided, we have to have a follow-up with them, but provided that goes well, I think we will invite them to give an overview of their program at that November meeting also, so that folks can hear about this, because I think it has a lot of merit to something. Whether or not it comes out of the council, I think if it works out like I think, then it'll probably be something at the very least the council would want to support. So. With that, I will give everybody 45 minutes back and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. This is Erica.
Thank you.
Second, Eric.
Second from Eric. Thank you, Eric. All those in favor, either raise your hand or say aye, please, from the council. Anybody opposed? Never is. All right. Thank you all. For those that are guests on the call, thank you for sitting in today. If you'd like to learn more, the website was shared. Also, you can reach out directly to me. It's Shawn, SHAWN, .Naylor, and as in Nancy, AILOR, @vermont.gov. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have or connect you with the people that know. I will stop recording. And I hope everyone has a good day.